He had learned that space could be quiet in the same way a loaded weapon could be quiet. Never truly safe, only waiting for someone to misread a blinking light. The border station Asterian Drift hung above the fractured moon like a forgotten piece of machinery that had long stopped asking why it existed. Corporal Ren Vane drifted through its maintenance corridors on routine patrol, boots magnetized with a soft, irritated rhythm, listening to the station's internal systems argue with themselves in the language of worn-out circuits. Even the lights here flickered like they were tired of pretending everything was under control. Sector C remains nominal, his drone companion announced in its calm, irritatingly cheerful voice. Ren tilted his head. Nominal is just military for, I hope nothing explodes while I'm looking away. Statistically, explosions are unlikely. Statistically, I've been late to every good decision I've ever made. He passed a vending unit labeled nutritional support, slapped it once, and received something that tasted like recycled cardboard having an identity crisis. The drone made a small sound that might have been judgment if it had been allowed emotions. Then the station's warning tone arrived late, as if it had taken a moment to decide whether the situation was worth the effort. A faint object appeared on the outer scan, unregistered, drifting, low-energy signature, non-human alloy composition. Ren stopped walking. Please tell me that's space debris. The drone analyzed. It is not classified as debris. Fantastic, my favorite category of problem, the unnamed kind. He rerouted his patrol craft without waiting for authorization. The drone immediately flagged 17 violations, then politely added 3 more as if remembering them mid-sentence. Ren ignored all of them. He had learned long ago that rules were like hull plating, useful until something interesting hit them. The object resolved into a pod, old design, scarred like it, had survived an argument with physics and lost. It spun slowly in the vacuum, its surface etched with symbols that the translator system refused to even attempt, which was usually a bad sign or an expensive one. Possibly both. Containment unit required, the drone said. I am containment unit, Ren replied. That is not an approved designation. Then approve it retroactively. He latched the craft, maneuvering close enough that the pod filled the viewport like a silent accusation. When the hatch finally opened with a reluctant exhale, the interior light spilled out in fractured pulses. She was inside. At first glance, she could have been human, if humanity had evolved under softer stars and slightly better emotional planning. Her skin held a faint silvery sheen, like moonlight trapped under liquid glass. But it was her ears that broke the illusion. Long, elegant, distinctly alien, rising in gentle arcs from her head and shifting faintly even in unconsciousness, as though they were listening to a frequency no one else could perceive. Every time the emergency lights flickered, her ears twitched slightly, and Ren found himself irrationally hoping they weren't reacting to his thoughts. She is alive, the drone confirmed. Yeah, I noticed. I'm not completely decorative. Red warnings flooded his display: unauthorized contact, diplomatic risk, quarantine breach, possible interstellar incident. Ren sighed like a man watching paperwork become destiny. Define possible, he muttered. He reached in anyway. The moment his gloves touched her suit, her body shifted faintly, like something inside her was deciding whether reality was trustworthy. She was lighter than she should have been, as if gravity itself hadn't signed the correct agreement. He pulled her free, bracing for alarms, consequences, or at least dramatic thunder. Space, however, remained unimpressed. Great, he said as he secured her into the medbay cradle. If this turns into an interstellar incident, I want it noted that I tried being boring first. Her eyes fluttered open for a fraction of a second, pale, reflective, almost luminous, as if starlight had briefly learned how to focus. She tried to speak. What came out was not language, but something like broken signal wrapped in breath. Then she slipped back into unconsciousness, as if the universe had decided the conversation was too complicated for now. The drone hovered beside him. You have violated 21 protocols. I prefer to think of it as reducing bureaucratic inefficiency. Command will not interpret it that way. Command rarely interprets anything that requires empathy. Somewhere beyond the hull, deep in the quiet between stars, something ancient and distant registered a change in trajectory. Not alarms, not weapons, just attention, like a slow eye opening. Ren looked down at the alien woman with the long ears and wondered if he had rescued her, or accidentally invited the entire universe to notice his existence a little more closely than was comfortable. She woke up during the third attempt at recalibrating the medbay diagnostics, which was unfortunate timing for both of them. The system had been insisting she was biologically undefined, which sounded less like a medical reading and more like an existential insult. Ren leaned over the console. Still undefined. The drone answered before the system could. She is still undefined. That's not helpful. It is accurate. The alien woman's eyes opened slowly, like she was negotiating with reality for better terms. When she tried to move, the medbay restraints adjusted instantly, tightening just enough to be polite but firm. Her long ears twitched sharply, reacting to the sudden pressure shift in the room, as if the air itself had spoken too loudly. Ren raised his hand slightly. Hey, no sudden heroics. You're on my ship, which is technically speaking not supposed to have you on it. Her gaze locked onto him. There was no fear there, only calculation. And something else, confusion layered under exhaustion, like a broken star map trying to remember where it belonged. She spoke again, this time the signal clearer. The ship's translator system coughed, sputtered, and then produced something approximating language. Why am I alive in human custody? Ren blinked. That's a surprisingly efficient first question. The drone replied instantly. You are in compliance violation of 17 interstellar custody protocols. She slowly turned her head toward the drone. And you are a talking administrative error. I am a standard issue reconnaissance assistant. Sounds like an administrative error with confidence. Ren coughed, trying not to laugh. Okay, I already like her. This is going to make the eventual tribunal much more emotionally complicated. Her eyes shifted back to him. You brought me here. I prefer the phrase, rescued from space-induced death. But yes, technically. Her ears tilted slightly, studying him with an expression that suggested she was deciding whether he was either brave or catastrophically stupid. Possibly both. You should not have done that, she said quietly. Yeah, Ren replied. I've been told I should not do a lot of things. I'm starting to think it's just my personality profile. The medbay chimed again. Warning. External signal intercepted. The ship dimmed slightly as if it had just remembered it was supposed to be nervous. The drone stiffened midair. We are being scanned. Ren sighed. Of course we are. The alien woman closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, something had changed. Not her expression exactly, but her awareness, like she had just heard something far beyond the ship. They found me, she said. That sounds bad, Ren said carefully. It is worse than bad, she replied. It is classified as politically irreversible. Ren leaned against the console. I hate when things get classified as that, usually means paperwork. The ship's external feed flickered. Far outside, space itself seemed unchanged, but the instruments disagreed violently. Multiple energy signatures were converging, fast, precise, not random. Ships, not human. The drone processed faster than usual. Multiple unidentified vessels entering sector boundary. Weapon-grade emitters detected. Ren exhaled slowly. So, visitors. The alien woman looked at him. Not visitors. A pause. Enforcers. The word settled in the room like gravity increasing its opinion. Ren scratched his neck. I was really hoping for something less dramatic, like debt collectors. The drone added, statistical probability of peaceful intent. Negligible. Thanks, Ren said. Always good to have you around for optimism. The alien woman tried to sit up. The restraints adjusted again. She winced slightly, then gave the system a look that suggested she might personally redesign it later if given the opportunity. You must release me, she said. Yeah, that's not happening yet, Ren replied. We just got scanned by angry space bureaucracy. They will not stop at scanning. That's also not comforting. Her ears shifted again, this time lower, like she was listening to something that wasn't inside the ship at all. If I remain here, your species will be implicated. Ren gestured vaguely at the console. We were already implicated the moment I signed up for Frontier Patrol with minimal emotional distress. That was a lie, by the way. The drone spoke softly. Incoming transmission request. Origin, unidentified fleet authority. Ren hesitated. Of course there's a call. He accepted it. The holographic display flickered, but instead of a face, there was only The first warning shot never looked like a shot. It arrived as a fold in space, a subtle distortion in the stars outside the viewport, as if the universe had briefly reconsidered its shape and decided violence was more efficient. The station's alarms tried to respond, but even they sounded tired, like they had been expecting this meeting for years. Ren stood by the console, watching the fleet tighten its formation around Asterian Drift. No dramatic battle cries, no heroic music, just cold geometry of ships arranging themselves with bureaucratic precision. "Status?" he asked. The drone answered immediately. "We are surrounded." "Love a concise report," Ren muttered. "Really cuts down on emotional coping time." The alien woman stood beside him now, no longer restrained. She had insisted, politely at first, then with a tone that suggested long ears were not the only thing sharp about her species, that staying confined would only make things worse. Surprisingly, she was correct. Her gaze was fixed on the fleet. "They will not fire immediately." "That's comforting," Ren said. "How long do I have before immediately stops being comforting?" "Seconds if negotiations fail." Ren sighed. "I was hoping for at least minutes." The transmission came again, the same shifting symbols. This time the translator struggled less, as if the fleet had decided clarity was no longer optional. "Return entity. Human interference equals treason against interstellar balance. Judgment finalizing." Ren leaned toward the console. "Quick question, does anyone ever respond to you with 'Sure, take her back, sorry about the inconvenience'?" The drone replied, "Negative." "Yeah, I figured." The alien woman stepped forward. Her long ears lifted slightly, as if tuning into frequencies beyond the hull, beyond even the fleet itself. "I can speak to them," she said. Ren glanced at her. "And will that result in peace, or will it result in me becoming a historical footnote titled 'Guy Who Tried'?" "I cannot guarantee peace," she admitted, "but I can correct their assumption." "Honestly," Ren said, "that's already more diplomatic than anything I've ever done." She activated an external channel. The fleet paused, not physically, but structurally, like an algorithm encountering an unexpected variable. Her voice went out across space, translated imperfectly but powerfully enough that even the ship seemed to straighten. "I am not stolen property. I am not a trigger for your war." A pause. "I am the consequence of your fear." The fleet hesitated. For the first time, their formation loosened slightly, like doubt had entered the room and refused to leave quietly. Ren leaned closer to the drone. "Is that good?" "Unknown," it replied, "but it is emotionally effective." One of the fleet vessels pulsed. A response formed. Entity compromised. Human subject, interference vector. Elimination protocol initiated. Ren exhaled. "Okay, that was the wrong answer." The alien woman didn't move. "No, that was the expected answer." Ren blinked at her. "That's not comforting either." She turned to him slightly, and for the first time her expression softened. Not fear, not calculation, but something closer to trust. "You saved me without authority," she said. "Yeah, still thinking about that paperwork." "You did not ask if I was worth the cost." Ren shrugged. "If I waited for that kind of approval, I'd still be staring at vending machines for emotional support." A faint sound escaped her, almost a laugh. Outside, the fleet weapons began to charge. She stepped closer to him. "Then I will give them a truth they cannot classify." Her ears lifted fully now, and the air around her seemed to shift, as if space itself was listening. The ship systems flickered. The drone stuttered. "Warning," it said. "Unknown biogenic field detected." Ren frowned. "Is that bad?" "Yes." "Good to know we're staying consistent." The alien woman extended her hand toward the console, not touching it, but aligning with it. The fleet systems suddenly echoed, not just their transmissions, but their intent. Fear, control, anticipation, all laid bare. And then she spoke again, not to the fleet, not to Ren, but to the shared space between them. "You do not protect balance. You preserve uncertainty, because you are afraid of what truth would cost." The fleet went silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. No weapons fired. No retaliation. Just the vast, uncomfortable pause of civilizations realizing they might have been wrong for a very long time. Then one ship disengaged. Then another. Not surrender, not victory, recalibration. The fleet withdrew slowly, unwillingly, like a thought being unlearned. When the last signal faded, the station lights stabilized again. The alarms stopped arguing with themselves. Ren exhaled. "So that's it." The drone replied, Hostile engagement avoided. Nice, Ren said. I've never survived anything by accidentally causing a philosophical crisis before. The alien woman swayed slightly, exhaustion catching up with her now that the universe had stopped trying to kill them. You changed their trajectory, she said softly. Ren shook his head. I think you did most of the talking. She looked at him. No, I provided truth. You provided the reason it mattered. He let that sit for a moment, uncomfortable in the way only important truths ever are. So what now? He asked. Her ears lowered slightly, but not in sadness. Indecision. Now, she said, I return to my people and repair what your choice revealed. And me. She glanced at him, faintly amused again. You return to your station and attempt to explain why you violated 21 protocols. Ren groaned. I'm going to need better coffee for that. A pause. Then she added, almost gently, and if your people ask whether it was worth it. Ren looked out at the stars where the fleet had been, now just empty space again. He smiled slightly. Yeah, he said, tell them it was the least boring thing I've ever done. The drone chimed softly. Statement has high probability of legal consequences. Yeah, Ren said, but also high probability of me sleeping without nightmares, so I'll take it. The alien woman stepped toward the exit hatch. Before leaving, she paused once, looking back at him, not as a soldier, not as a variable, but as the person who had pulled her from silence. You are not what your rules say you are, she said. Ren gave a small salute that was more habit than formality. Try telling that to my supervisor. And then she was gone, carried back into the quiet vastness between systems, where laws bent more carefully now, and fear had learned to hesitate. Ren stayed at the viewport a while longer, listening to the station settle, the drone hovering beside him like an overworked conscience. Back to patrol? The drone asked. Ren sighed. Yeah, let's go be boring again. A pause. Then he added, but maybe slightly less obedient next time. The drone considered this. Noted, it said. And for the first time in a long time, the station drifted through space without feeling like it was waiting for the end of something. Only the beginning of something that finally made sense, even if nobody had written the rules for it yet. The official tribunal convened 3 weeks later, which in military time meant, we argued about it, filled out 7 incompatible forms, then argued again. Ren stood in the center of the projection chamber aboard Asterian Drift, hands behind his back, trying to look like a man who had not personally triggered an interstellar diplomatic incident. The problem was that everyone in the room had access to the same records, which made pretending difficult. The senior commander cleared her throat. Corporal Vane, you are accused of unauthorized extraction of a classified extraterrestrial entity, breach of containment protocol, and... Yeah, Ren interrupted politely. I'd like to preemptively plead guilty to the first one. The second one depends on whether we're calling it containment or extremely inconvenient hospitality. A faint ripple of silence moved through the chamber. The drone beside him spoke softly. Humor detected, not recommended. Noted, Ren whispered back. Too late. Then the doors opened. She entered, not as a prisoner, not as an asset, but as something that made the entire chamber forget how to breathe for half a second. Her long ears caught the chamber's artificial light and softened it, as if even sterile military illumination was being corrected in her presence. Murmurs spread instantly. That is the entity. She was on that ship. Why does she look like she's about to judge our entire species? Ren exhaled quietly. Yeah, that's her. The alien woman stepped forward without hesitation. I am here under my own authority. The commander frowned. Your authority is not recognized within this jurisdiction. She tilted her head slightly. That is why your jurisdiction is afraid. Ren muttered to himself. Oh no. She learned diplomacy from watching me improvise. A faint pause followed. Then she continued. The human who brought me here did not understand my identity. He did not obey your protocols. He did not calculate political cost. She glanced back at Ren briefly. He acted incorrectly in every official metric. Ren nodded. I feel seen and slightly attacked. But, she added, he acted correctly in the only metric that matters when systems fail. Silence, even the drone stopped speaking. He chose not to let me die, she said simply. Everything that followed, your panic, your fleets, your war signals, came from your interpretation, not his action. The chamber's lights flickered once, as if the station itself was reconsidering its opinion. The commander stepped forward. And you claim this does not constitute interference in sovereign protocol. The alien woman's ears lifted slightly. I claim your protocol failed to account for mercy. Ren leaned slightly toward the drone. Is mercy in the manual? No. Shocking. A long pause followed. Not tense anymore, just uncertain. Then a new transmission arrived. Not from the fleet this time, but from external deep space channels. The symbols were older, calmer, recognizable. The alien woman turned slightly. My people. The message unfolded across the chamber. Review complete. Subject status. Valid. Incident classification. Transitional contact event. No war declared. Ren blinked. So, we didn't start a war. The drone replied. Correction. Probability of war reduced to negligible. Ren exhaled. I'm adding that to my resume. The alien woman looked at him again. You did not start a war, she said quietly. You started a question they could not ignore. He scratched his neck. I was really just trying to avoid paperwork. That, she said, is how most histories begin. A faint sound of amusement moved through the chamber despite itself. Even the commander looked mildly offended by how relieved she was. The tribunal ended with fewer consequences than expected, which in military terms was equivalent to celebration. Ren was reassigned to frontier observation duty with recommended behavioral monitoring, which everyone understood meant, we don't know what to do with you, please stay far away from important decisions. As he left the chamber, the alien woman walked beside him for a few steps. You will continue your work here? She asked. Yeah, Ren said. Turns out space doesn't get less weird when you move around it. She nodded slightly. My people will remember your name. Ren gave a half smile. Tell them to remember it with mild confusion. That feels accurate. She paused at the docking corridor. For the first time, her expression softened in a way that wasn't diplomatic or calculated. You changed what was possible, she said. Ren shrugged. I think I mostly just broke something important and got lucky about the outcome. No, she said gently. You proved that rules are not the same as truth. A beat. Then more quietly, that is dangerous and necessary. She stepped back toward the transit gate. Before it closed, she looked at him one last time. You will not be forgotten between